come all the way down onto our backs. As we're laying here on our backs, start off like normal, breath flowing into the belly. Feel the lungs expand. Feeling so good to be here, to be present, to be alive. Now today's practice is going to be largely centered around the hips and the low back, those low areas of our body. And energetically, those areas to me represent creativity. It's like for us, for females, we have a womb right in that spot. It's a place of growth, and it's like a passive growth. It's something that happens whether or not you necessarily think about it. And all of a sudden you birth a baby, a new fresh life onto this earth. And so I'd like us to think about our creativity in that way. It's like something that we're feeding energy to almost in a passive way, in a nurturing way. And eventually this aspect starts to take on its own life. So what is it that we would like to birth? And this is in a creative way. So what habits would we like to birth? Or what lifestyle can we envision that we would like to create for ourselves? What ways can we be creative? And this is the energy that we're working on in our class today, helping to create space in the hip and low back pelvic area, creating that space for creativity, but also just kind of gently massaging that energy. That sacral chakra is all about that creative force, creating things that did not exist previously. So perhaps the idea is already very clear for you what you would like to work on, almost building and birthing and creating in your life. Or perhaps the question that's residing in the back of your mind is, what is my purpose, my goal, my dream? And so either direction, we'll place that in the back of our mind for us to develop and to connect deeper into it as we travel through our class today. So with that idea to lead us on, let's begin to bring the knees into the chest, starting some of the physical stuff. We can rock around on those hips, starting off with that nice low back massage already. So from here, let's drop the left foot down. We're going to cradle out the right leg for a little while. So our left hand holds onto the right foot, the right hand is on the knee, and we're hugging it in as deep as feels good with still being able to rest the head on the ground. And then perhaps we're rocking it out, left and right. Or perhaps just hugging it deep in. Trying to set up that deep connection, almost like we're inviting this closer to our heart. And then from here, as we start to release our hands, our right knee is going to cross very tightly over the left knee, like an eagle's pose. Maybe the toes are even wrapping around the calf. If that doesn't happen, don't stress too much about it. But we've got that cross happening. Our right elbow also wraps under the left elbow. Maybe hands can touch, maybe not. Fingertips start to drop to the ground right above the head. And just enjoy the shoulders opening right there. It's so nice to include the shoulders because that helps us to relieve some of the tension that may be holding us back. From here, just to help us warm up, let's allow ourselves to crunch in, touching the elbows to the knees. And relax back down, maybe fingers to the ground. Crunching in for 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Good. Release the arms. If you have the toes wrapped, release the toes, but allow the thighs to come into the chest. Each foot flings off to each side, so the hand grabs the foot that's off to that direction. Make sure your head can still relax down. A whole different stretch through the hip connections. Drop the left foot to the ground. Spread the arms open on the ground like a huge figure T. Hips bump just an inch or so to the right, and then the knees begin to fall over to the left. Feeling not only the spinal twist, but also the low back and the hips starting to open up for us. Beautiful inhale into the belly. Exhale, hips start to return down onto the ground. Make sure to recenter hips on the earth. Once we uncross the legs, shoot the legs up to the sky, and then let them muscularly open up nice and wide. The arms reach up overhead. Take an inhale. Exhale, lift up the arms and reach them through the legs. Repeating that one. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. As the head rests down, hands come to the inner thighs, just letting the legs rest in this opening position. If the legs start to get shaky and you don't like it, you can bend the knees. You'd still get the hip opener there. I personally like straight legs just because that includes a few extra muscle groups through the hamstring area. So just 2 more good breaths. Try to slow it down, breathing into the belly. And then as we start to let the knees bend, drop the right foot to the ground. Let's cradle up the left leg. You can hold on with hands or maybe slide deeper toward the elbow. It might be a rocking position for that left hip that feels good, or it might be stillness, trying to bring the shin to the heart. Enjoy another wonderful inhale. Exhale, starts to let this left leg cross over. Maybe the toe wrap happens, maybe not. With left thigh over, left elbow goes under this time as we set up the wrap. Fingertips, see if they can touch the ground above the head. And just pause for a moment as the shoulders passively open. Taking those 10 crunches, start with the inhale. And exhale, touch into the knees. And 9, 8, feel your breath pumping with you. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Good. Release the arms. Release the toes if you have that hooked, and then thighs come into the chest. The toes naturally fling off to each direction, so just grab onto the ankles. And invite the legs in. Maybe it feels good to continue to pull deeper, using just a little bit of arm strength. Like we're contracting the biceps, building that gentle strength just by holding on. And as we start to release, the right foot goes to the ground, the arms start to spread open, hips bump to left just a hair, and then the knees start to fall to the right. Nice inhale into the belly. Exhale, hips drop back to the earth, recenter them. And then legs straighten up to the sky. Once they're there, spread them wide, going for 10 more crunches. Reach up overhead. Exhale, reach through the legs. And 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Amazing. Hands can drop back to the legs. Maybe they're stretching even wider. We've got just a couple of breaths. Maybe for this last breath, shoot energy down the heels. The legs are going just slightly straighter. And release. The feet come into plant close to the glutes. Hands are on the floor by the hips. We're rising up to bridge pose. Lift the hips up and then roll up one vertebrae at a time. From here, the right hip drops down. The left hip is holding it up. And then switch it out. Left hip is down, right hip is up. And just slowly alternate between those two sides, almost like we're walking. Right hip down and left hip down. Once more to each side. And then lift both hips up evenly high. One inhale. Exhale, roll all the way down to the ground. Bring the knees in wide. Slide the hands up to ankles or feet for happy baby. Just a moment. Let those hips continue to open for us. Maybe we're rocking back and forth to massage that low back, or perhaps this one's about the hips. Good. The knees come together. We're gonna work our way up to sit. If you'd like to roll like a ball several times, that's fine. If you just wanna come directly up and into cobbler's pose, that's also fine. Personal preference. Good. When you're happy, cobbler pose. You choose if it's close, if the feet are close to the pelvis or if they're a bit further for this first one. Head gets to release forward. Try not to have too much muscular effort in the back at all. We're just kind of releasing all those muscles and draping the head over. Let both hands walk a little bit closer to the right side. Doesn't have to be far, just enough to feel that wonderful stretch on the left low back. And walk the hands through the center, over to the other side. Walking back through the center, pause just a couple of extra breaths, helping spine find the straight alignment. And then as we start to rise up, slide the feet just a little bit further out. We're grabbing onto the shins, and our whole chest is going to do huge circles, and you're making it like a cat-cow. So when you come forward, the heart is draping forward. When you round back, the spine is rounded back. So choose one direction, maybe clockwise, and let the chest go forward and the spine round back in this circular direction. See if you can still do inhales through the front, exhales through the back. And one more to this direction. And then start to switch it out. If you were going clockwise before, go counter. One more cycle to this direction. And as we finish, let's bring our way up onto hands and knees. Our right knee floats out to the right side, and that knee is going to do 3 large circles clockwise and counterclockwise. So trace one direction as wide as it can go. 3, 2, 1, and reverse. 3, 2, 1. Beautiful. Straighten the right leg out behind you. Cross it over to the left side, sending the toes past the mat. And then as you gaze to those toes, your hip is naturally being pushed to that right side of the mat. Beautiful. Drop the right knee down. Left knee lifts, preparing for the 3 circles. So go as wide as you can. 3, 2, and 1. Reverse. 3, 2, and 1. Straighten the leg out to the back. Cross past the right side, setting the toes down, and gaze to them, pushing hips to the left edge of the mat. Take this knee back evenly down onto the ground. A barrel roll with the chest, so round the spine up like cat, and then jet the ribs over to the right side. Chest starts to roll down. Ribs to the left side and up, and then reverse. Ribs to the left, down, right, and up. Take it once more to each direction. Beautiful. As we start to walk the hands forward, we're in a nice kneeling plank. Squeeze the elbows in, try to hover in a chaturanga. So this doesn't have to be right to the ground. It could be almost at the beginning of a push-up. So wherever you can hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and drop down to the ground. Let's take a nice back bend, maybe just a Sphinx pose for this first one. Elbows underneath us, heart getting pulled through. Just enjoy that passive stretch through the low back. And start to slide the hands under the shoulders so that we can shift back into child's pose. Let the whole spine lengthen. Trying to get that forehead to rest down onto the ground. From here, we prepare to come up to downward facing dog. Once we're in that shape, let your hips do some kind of a circle. That might look like very different things for different people. But let the hips really have a chance to wiggle all around. Loosening their way up so that ultimately there's a higher lift accessible to us in the down dog. So let's take 2 more breaths of wiggles. And then a good breath of stillness, lifting the hips up. And then we make our way up toward the top of the mat. Let the legs have extension for a moment. Nice forward fold. Inhale, circle all the way up, maybe a nice arch backward. And then hands come to the heart. We're shifting our weight into the left foot. And then our right leg is going to stick out in front of us. So this could be a low angle if that's where the leg is straight. It could be a higher angle. So whatever you have the strength for. From the right leg lifting, we're going to imagine a white picket fence off to the right hip. So this can be a very small, like Lego white picket fence, or it could be a very tall one. But what we're going to do is lean so that we can try to get that right leg over the white picket fence and then back like warrior 3. And again, this could be a very small warrior 3. It could be toes kind of grazing the ground every once in a while to balance, that's okay. Eventually work back over the white picket fence, leg hovering forward. We got 2 more passes over the fence. So travel over and back and return. 1 more on this leg. It's a good challenge for the standing foot to build that strength by trying to keep us in balance the whole time. It's kind of funky. Good, we can drop that foot down. And then we're taking second side, left leg out. Maybe take a moment just to feel the balance. And when you're ready, go over your white picket fence, no matter how tall it is. And back. 2. And 1. Beautiful. Up at the top of the mat, circle the arms up to the sky. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, half lift, long spine. Exhale, hands down. Step walk or jump back. Perhaps taking a flow. If not, child pose or down dog are also welcome. If you're doing the flow, lower to the ground. Back bend of your choice when you get there. And downward facing dog. Pausing here, try to fill this into the hips and the low back. Right leg floats up to the sky. Step the right foot to the outside of right hand. The back knee is welcome to drop down. And we're here trying to help that right hip open. So really explore and see what you have to do to get the hip to rotate open. What I like to do is start turning the toes further off the right edge, dropping the left hip down a little bit. My right hand can encourage that knee open. Make sure you're not sickling your ankle at all, so that's why we have the toes turning. Sometimes it's also nice to lift up the back toes and spiral the whole spine open, grabbing into the quadricep stretch. It's not always available, but sometimes it's nice. Good. If you grabbed it and twisted, start to return the spine. Maybe there's a moment where we drop down to elbows, just a couple of breaths. Good. And then planting the hands, lift up the back knee, step it to the outside of the left part of the mat so that we can go down into yogic squat. And again, if this is too much for your knees, you're absolutely welcome to sit on a block here instead. We don't need to hurt the knees, but we are wanting to help the hips. Good. Usually I try to get the whole foot flat, so that usually for me means I have to just play with the right foot placement. But toes does get a good stretch too. Oh. 3 more breaths right here. Eventually planting the hands down, straighten the legs and rotate the toes to point forward. Feel the spine start to release. Trying to let go of any muscular effort we initially had. Inhale, start to rise. Hands in up with the heart. And let's do all of that to flow on the second side. Inhale, circle up. Exhale, a nice forward fold. Inhale, half lift, long spine. As you drop the hands back, you're heading back toward plank for the flow, child pose, or down dog. Personal preference here. When you get to down dog, 2 more breaths. And then left foot lifts up to the sky. To step to the outside of left hand. Right knee is welcome to drop down. Hips already traveling forward just by how we set it up. And always know if the back knee just needs padding, you can always roll your mat over just to help it out. So that's always an option if you need it. We're starting to help the hip open, so maybe left toes point to the left side a bit more. Maybe right hip drops down just a little bit more, as left hand helps to push onto the thigh. Only if it feels good. Always listen to the knees. Never put any more pressure than feels right. If you took it before, maybe the back toes lift and you try to reach, circling the whole spine to grab onto it. And as we start to release that back foot, we can take a nice lizard, dropping to elbows if that's possible. You always can use your block if not. Rising up onto hands when we're ready. Lift up the back knee so that we can slide right foot forward, setting up again for that yogic squat. For me, just about mat distance wide with the feet is perfect. Some people narrower, some people wider. See if you can feel the low back releasing. Perhaps the shoulders drop down and you round the spine for this one. Just enjoying that extra stretch in the spine. And then change it to be all about the hips, sliding the spine up straight, elbows push more firmly into the knees. 2 more breaths. And hands drop down, straighten the legs, turn the toes forward, release the muscles of that back. Oftentimes I'll scan here, I'll notice perhaps there's a muscle group that you're realizing is actually holding quite a bit of tension. And you start to ask, okay, do I need to have that tension, yes or no? If the answer is no, see if that muscle group can release just a bit further. Sometimes that's in the back, sometimes it's around the hips or glutes, even hamstrings trying to resist. So just ask maybe one more time, is there anything else that's holding on unnecessarily? If yes, can I release it? One more inhale. Beautiful exhale. Maybe bend the knees to come up or circle the arms up. Good, hands to the heart. Heel toe the big toes closer together. Heels slightly separated. And we're heading toward either an eagle pose prep or the full eagle pose. So hips start to sit back. This is the prep. Even arms perhaps winding around, right elbow under left. Maybe take a moment just to loosen up the shoulders, either turning left and right or lifting the elbows up and down. Help that area continue to loosen, letting the neck tilt in good ways. So this is the eagle pose prep. You don't have to go further than this. If you're taking the full eagle's pose, right thigh starts to wrap over. You can absolutely go for kickstand, toes touching the ground. Maybe toes start to wrap around the calf. Good. From here, we add in the white picket fence from this starting spot. So standing leg goes straight, right leg kicks out in front. Tilt to go over the white picket fence. Back through warrior 3. And around to eagle's wrap. Even just pausing in one spot is okay. Trying to go for 2 if you're still doing okay. Good. And 1. Beautiful. Unwind the arms, unwind the legs, shake everything out for a moment. Maybe even let the arms be loose, taking a couple of spirals. Good. So playing with the second side, we're sitting back on the chair. Left elbow under. Take a moment just to play with those arms. If the arms don't make the full connection, just let them float, that's okay. Are they feeling good if we turn them left and right? Is it better if we lift them up and down? Just play with that shoulder socket. I especially feel these through my shoulder blades, so find the spots where this is helpful and maybe even pause in that spot for another moment. Okay, when you're ready, this time it's left thigh over. And again, if that's too much, just pause with the chair, that's okay. If you can add on the white picket fence, straighten the standing leg, left leg forward, kick over the fence, and maybe back. And return. Taking 2. And 1. Good, when you finish, feel free to wind out, shaking out the arms, maybe even doing that nice loose winding of the spine. And let the legs go wide on your mat. You can turn to the long edge if you like. And just let your whole spine drape over. Legs enjoying this nice release. Walk the arms long out in front of you, almost like the upper half of the body is down dog, but the hips are still traveling backwards to be over the legs. From that length, start to walk the hands just a couple of inches over to the right side. Feel that length through the ribs. Nice stretch to the low back. And walk forward, over to the second direction, nice and long. And back through the center. Slide the hands in to help the spine release back downward again. Maybe you're sinking a bit deeper than before. And 3 more good breaths right here. Good. After the third breath, start to walk your hands up toward your top of the mat. Stepping the front foot back. You've got another option for child pose, down dog, or a flow. And no matter where you're at, come forward to plank or kneeling plank. Or one more time down to the belly and stay resting on the belly. The arms come around in front, stacking the palms so that you can rest the forehead down. And from here, the right knee goes through the side to try to come up close to that right shoulder. A nice gentle hip opener. Feel your belly breathe into the ground, giving a nice massage. Sometimes it's nice to even flip your head so that you're looking perhaps over to the right side or over to the left side, whatever feels better on the neck. Belly starting to calm. We've headed past the peak toward these nice, wonderful stretches at the end. And start to slide that right leg all the way back. Left knee does the same thing, using the floor to help get that hip open. If you have the head turned one direction, go ahead and flip it. And start to slide this leg back to return. We take a brief back bend, so this could be Sphinx pose again. Perhaps seal pose, this is a yin yoga pose. With the hands going a little bit wider than the mat, we lift up the elbows. It's a little bit more gentle than a full cobra. Hands can even walk forward to be slightly more gentle. Taking a nice 3 more breaths right here. And after all 3 breaths, shift the hips back to child pose, just a brief pause there. And then we rise up to start setting up for frog pose. So when we are laying on our belly, each knee did a half frog, so we've already helped our hips to start opening up to that. I personally like to come facing the long edge, and I even roll my mat in once or twice just to add an extra padding for the knees. So once I've got it pretty padded, I take my knees onto the roll, letting my knees go super wide, and then I drop down to elbows. I want my shins to be sticking straight down, so a 90-degree angle at that joint. And you want your hips to also be at a 90-degree angle. That means we're not going forward, we're not going backward, we're right at that spot in the middle. It's going to be the spot where the hips are actually the highest. So that's helping to increase the stretch through the inner thighs. Now this on elbows is where most people are. Occasionally there's a person who can widen the elbows and drop the heart down without sacrificing the hip placement. So if that's you, that's okay. It does make it much more intense though, so don't feel any pressure to. You can absolutely just stay on elbows. Let's try to slow down the breath, taking 3 more beautiful cycles. As we're starting to head out of this, you can head backward into child pose, or you can rest the hips forward and then let the knees do nice windshield wipers. So whatever feels better to kind of help the hips to recover from that intensity. And when you feel like you're okay, I think I can move on now. We're gonna open the mat back out. Travel up for a brief downward facing dog so that we can use that to help us transition into pigeon, right? Like floats for a moment. Maybe let the hip open, toes passing behind you. And then just swing that knee underneath your body, pigeon pose. Back leg scoots back, but we're making sure not to rock onto either hip. Our sacrum is level, like a serving tray. Elbows are absolutely welcome to drop down, sleeping pigeon. Again, make sure to listen to the knee. Knee does not need any pain. So if it's not feeling good, usually tuck the toes in closer to the pelvis and that'll help it out. To come out of this, we're going to rock onto the right hip. The left leg is going to swing all the way around. We're going to cradle it for another moment. So maybe use hands to grab on, or maybe slide further up to the elbow creases. I personally like to rock it, so if that's nice, go ahead and take that option. And when that's feeling pretty complete there, drop this left shin on top of right. Lift the spine up tall. Trying to tilt forward to rest fingers on the ground and then slide that forward. This is double pigeon. It gets similar to what we just got, but it's so much deeper into the glutes. So that's why I like to include this one as well. Yeah, I'm already seeing this variation, but if the stacking shins doesn't work, obviously just go to cross-leg position. That's a beautiful option. And sitting up tall from here, twist to the right side, one hand on the thigh, other hand behind you, and twist to the left side. Good. Release. Let's take one more down dog to get to the second side. So let the hips have a brief moment lifting as high as they possibly can. We've created a mountain here. Eventually left leg starts to reach. Maybe you take that moment to bend the knees, sending the toes behind you. And when it feels ready, pigeon pose, left knee forward and through. Back leg scoots back, our sacrum is level, and then we can rest. Start to head out, rocking onto the hip. Right leg swings around to be cradled out. Keep on going as long as there's still good things that are kind of being squeezed out of that hip. And eventually it'll be time to drop the shin on top. The posture lengthen for a moment. The foot can also be dropped down in front if that's better. And then start to walk forward. As we start to rise back up, take the twist to the left side first this time. Nice spinal twist for the length and then the rotation. And then gentle release forward. Again, set up the tall spine before we start to rotate. Good. With this release, we prepare ourselves to come all the way down onto the ground. As we're heading down, ask your body if there's last movements that would be very helpful for it. So this could very well be another happy baby pose, wiggling around for a moment. It could be taking a nice knee twist to each side. It could even be plow pose. So whatever last things would be so helpful for your back and for your hips, or other special areas of your body today, feel free to take as much time as you need to wiggle those things out, making sure they feel good and released. There's no rush to get to Shavasana, only when your body says, okay, I'm happy, that felt really good, this is a good spot to pause. When you find that moment, then you can feel your body start to be in this ultimate release. When you get there, feel how the breath is the first thing to just relax. If you felt stressed at all during class, if this was just slightly harder than your comfort zone, perhaps you've been holding your breath, and this is the time to reconnect to that area of our body. Perhaps you're feeling creative urges starting to swell up within you. So let yourself be with those urges if that's what happens today. Just seeing during the Shavasana where the growth wants to flow, seeing that in our imagination or in our mind's eye. Begin to deepen your inhales and your exhales. Start to introduce little movements back to fingers and toes, ankles and wrists. Eventually stretching out like we're waking up first thing in the morning. At some point we'll feel ready to take a nice fetal position off to one side. Pause here as the body's still preparing itself for the rest of the day. We're still transitioning. Maybe just stay here another 2 full breaths. Rising up when your body feels ready. With hands together in front of our heart, connect to that idea of creativity. What is it that we're growing? Is there a little creative project that's in our future that just makes us happy every time we think about it? Is there something bigger, a huge lifestyle change we might be working toward? Whatever it is that's wanting to urge up and grow within us, we take this day to be with that creativity. Maybe start making 1 or 2 little steps toward that plan. And so with this to lead us onward into this marvelous day, let's wrap up the wonderful time we got to share together with the sound of Om. Deep inhale now. May we be filled with light and happiness and peace. Namaste. Namaste.